Hey Gale Force, it's Angela here from the Gale comic, and welcome to our fourth episode of Musings. And I am joined here today by my writer Seth Greenwood. Say hi, Seth.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And also we have returning again our unofficial co-host and letter of Gale, Jordan Kirian. Say hi, Jordan.
Hello. Hi.
So how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm fantastic, actually.
I'm all right. As I have a little bit of a cold, so I might cough or clear my throat. But other than that, I'm fine.
I'm actually really excited to talk about a few things this week. Two of the most important things are some comics that some people have made this week,
Okay.
and yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us about that, Seth? Because I would also like to kind of talk about that.
So it was actually, to my surprise, that I was in the Hangouts reading what we have a Hangouts from the Gale team, and Jordan said, "Have you checked your social media accounts?" And I was on my way back from Tampa, and so I looked real quick on Instagram, and I saw a Gordy comic, and it actually mentioned Gale in it. So I don't know. Like, we talked about a Gordy crossover last week,
Yeah.
and that was like really weird because we also talked about how Jordan draws these like comics like months ahead of time. So Jordan, would you like to explain how that happened? Because that's just too
Yeah.
coincidental.
I don't know. It was weird because I definitely had that drawn for a while, and I knew that it was gonna come out but I was like keeping it from you guys. But then I like lined up all my comics for the week, and I didn't even think about it. And then I was like, "Oh, this is the one," and it just happened that like after we talked about that, because I mean it was done even before we talked about it,
Right.
and
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, it just happened to be like on the day that we are recording too, and it was just really weirdly timed.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
you also had another comic or another strip with Kiki, who's a character in Gordy, and she started a podcast, and that was and you released that I think in the week where you were first on the Musings, I believe, right?
Yes, that was the first. I think you guys had asked me to be on, and then uh, we recorded, and I downloaded my comics for the week, and I was putting them on the website ahead of time, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so weird! Like this podcast one is the
Yeah, that's
same
awesome.
week." So it's
Yeah.
just been two really weird coincidental things that happened. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
laugh. People who like podcasts are stupid.
Well, you know
yeah.
that that came from I was tabling at a convention, and I was next to some of my friends, and we were just talking about like the worst things you could say on a podcast, like or like the worst hot takes you could give, and I was like, oh my god, what if somebody just like abused their audience the whole time? And so I had that idea in like April, and finally it just and that's what's even weirder is that like that idea came in April, and I saved it all the way until then, and it was just the week that I was on the podcast, and I was like, this is crazy, the odds.
Angela, you said it was fate.
Yeah,
I think it might have been. I think you're
yeah,
right.
because the first time, okay, that's a coincidence, right? It's like, okay, you wrote this comic a long time ago, and then you happen to be a podcast. That's likely that could happen. But the second time, where you kind of wrote this, many weeks before, and we talked about the crossover, and it happened, and you didn't even tell us, and so it's like this huge surprise. And also and also it just everything kind of lined up because we also today was the official release of Gale the Calm on Comixology, so it was just like I just thought like when I saw that comic today, I was just like tearing up because I'm like, wow, this is such a creative way to give a shout out to us through one of your characters, Otto, who's like the owner or the store clerk at the comic store, and it was just this kind of seamless crossover mention that I was just like, wow, like how could you, like, I thought you actually planned this as a surprise, but then when you told us that, no, you did this, it just kind of happened. It's just like, no, this is not a coincidence anymore. This is kind of, spooky, spooky fate stuff that was meant to happen.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start checking. I'm gonna start checking my cheeseburgers for.
You're
Yeah, well,
right.
I mean, originally, yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out because I was like, oh, obviously we're all friends, and I was like, this is if one character's going to do it, it's going to be the guy who reads the comics, right? And
Yeah.
it was just originally just going to be a fun little shout out, but then like everything lined up, and I put it out, and as I was putting it out, even I was like, oh my gosh, today's the same day that they go live and stuff. So yeah, it was crazy. It was fun, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. That was like the whole thing. I was just like, oh, I'll just throw something for them because because like when you work on the comic, like when you do as many as Gordy as I do, you just start throwing in stuff for people and for yourself. So that was a
That's
nice one
awesome.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you're talking about like throwing things in for people, like just like throwing bones and stuff like that, and I feel like that's so selfless of you. Because, well, I mean, like you didn't have to mention Gale, like at all. Nobody has to mention Gale, and like it just made me so excited to see, like, even you. I know you're lettering Gale, and Gale is a part of your life, like it's a part of our life. But like honestly, it's really not as. I mean, it really doesn't have to be. It might be, but it doesn't have to be as much of a part of your life as it is our life.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, lettering is, it has an art to it, right? And but you don't have to get into it, the story, the way that we do, right? And for you to, to actually come out with your own comic with our comic in it and put Gale in the Gordy verse, like I can't. I can't.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm just so touched, and this is really like one of those rare moments where it's just like, wow, this is I don't know how to say it. It's just like it just feels like all this working alone in a vacuum, drawing alone. It's just like it's worth it, right? It's kind of these
Yeah.
connections that we make, and I'm just I can't find the words to express it. It's just I'm just so touched. It's really just like the highlight of making comics, period. When your comic is mentioned, like not by a comic creator, but in an actual comic of someone else. It's
Yeah.
just like that's just awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Jordan.
it is. Yeah, I'm glad that you guys appreciate it. It is. It is one of those things about just reaching out and saying like, because we do work alone or whatever. It is nice to know that there's that solidarity. So I just thought, I'll throw out you guys, and it was. I mean, it worked. The timing worked really well, but back when I did it, I was like, I'll just do it because they're my friends and it's my comic and I'll do it. But so now we got to do. I got to do more. Maybe another crossover. Maybe you guys will maybe you guys will show up at the comic at a convention or something sometime.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, speaking
That'd be
of
awesome.
yeah,
It would be cool if we could all. All right, I know this is a dream, and it's been a dream of mine forever. Is everybody that I meet that are creators, like not just you two, but everybody that I meet, I like online. I want to meet at a convention one day because I know
Yeah.
we all like. Well, we all like conventions. I don't go to as many conventions as I need to. Actually, I've only been to two. If you really want to, because they've never been around me, and I've always been really busy. But now, since Gale is taken off, like I want to actually go to them. Whether I'm actually going to table at them or not, that's beside the point. But I actually just want to attend them. For one, because I love the culture. Obviously, that's why you're going to go to any of the cons. But two, I want to learn, if I don't table, I want to learn from other people how to table.
Yeah.
And then I want to just communicate and network with people. And also, all the people that I've met the whole time since 2015 online that I know table at cons like constantly. I want to go out and actually meet them. Like Enrica, Jenny, uh, Rachel, you, Jordan. I want to be able to go to a con where I can just like meet all of these people, and it would be cool if like one day, we could all like all of us three meet at one con and actually work a table together or something like that. And you have hotcakes on one side, we have Nine Muse on the other side, or something like that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think also I just find it's a lot easier to promote your friend's work that you really love than your own, right? Because I could talk about like hotcakes and Gordy to people like it's so easy,
Right.
but when it
Yeah.
I
honestly
was
like
just doing that today.
yeah. And but when it comes to your own stuff, like, and we talked about this before, there's always this kind of hesitation. Like, I mean, like I just made like a short video to try and promote our like Gale Comixology thing, and throughout I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, this is so cringy, and I did all these like takes and things like that. But then I remembered your advice, Jordan, just like go into your alter ego, just get it done.
Yeah.
You need to back up your own work and believe in yourself. But anyways, all that to say is like I think you two would probably be the people I would want to meet the most, just because I feel like
For sure.
I know you two the most, and I think it would just be really awesome to kind of get together and like we've already had the artistic crossovers happen. Which is going to happen even more now because of the weekly challenge that we have, which we'll get to. But yeah, I just think it'll be really cool to hang out, sell some comics, and have a beer or something like that after.
Yeah.
So anyways, should we? Oh,
I'm actually trying to pull up some messages that I sent because it kind of reminded me um, about those shameless plugs where you can't just like talk about your own comic. But I think that because I actually did that this week, and I was like, did I send you one though, Jordan? Like about maybe I didn't.
I don't know. I know you sent me the video last night.
Yeah.
which video?
The one that you put on
I
Instagram.
thought that was an awesome video, Angela. That was great.
Yeah,
Um,
the one that you did, Angela.
Oh, thanks. I copied
I'm
that, like
trying
I
to.
copied the format because I did a similar one when we had the Cosmic Love Kickstarter out, where I kind of explained what our short story was about, and I just kind of copied that format format over and just try to say in a minute, because that's how much Instagram allows, just what the story's about and why you should buy it without being too obvious or aggressive. So, but yeah, it was kind of cringy because like it's just like when Seth saw it and he posted it up on our Nine Muse and Gale, and it was just like, oh my god, my feed is flooded with this, and like, ugh. But it's fine. It's fine. It's for a good cause.
Yeah.
So should we, Seth? Did you have something to show us, or can we?
Well, I'm looking for it actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
How about we?
I have to say,
go ahead. Did you have something?
sorry, I was just coughing into my microphone. I was just saying that, like, like before we started talking, and Seth was like, "This camera makes my lips look really full." I just keep thinking about like how I'm gonna like eventually draw Seth, and he's gonna have like these really like 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 he's gonna be at a convention. He's gonna have like super puffy lips, and I can't stop thinking about it.
So you agree with me, right? I have puffy lips.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the way you said it before I saw you, I was like, okay, he's at this convention and he's just like,
I have duck lips all the time.
I can't stop thinking about it now. It's gonna be hilarious.
And then when I get to concentrating, and then I know this is exactly why you said that, because I was going through my messages and I was concentrating, and when I concentrate, I do this all the time.
Concentrate your face.
This is my concentration phase.
There you go. There you go. So you
Yeah, it's
didn't do
almost like Ben
anything.
Stiller.
So it's not like you did anything to your lips. It's just your concentrating face gives you extra collagen-filled pouty lips.
Right. There you go. It's like, that's my superpower. I concentrate and I build collagen in my lips.
But there you go. There you go. That's Seth's secret, folks. That's his beauty secret. All right.
Yeah.
So do we want to kind of move on to our weekly challenge and kind of go through that?
Also, it's a weekly challenge now.
Oh, I guess what I meant was the challenge that or I should say, Jordan initiated last week, where we had to kind of pull him back as kind of a co-host / guest to talk about it. So just as a reminder, Jordan, do you want to just quickly summarize? I guess what the challenge was, because it changed many times.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do originally was kind of change up the way we look at how we all of us make comics. You know, Seth is the writer, Angela's the artist, and so I thought it would be kind of interesting to have everybody switch duties and Angela do some writing and we do some drawing and just to kind of see how maybe we interpret the story. There was some communication mix-ups, I guess, which was kind of my fault because I didn't forward it in time. But so Angela did write a script, and I took a swing at it, and so
You're not going to get to see my stick figures because I didn't get the whole thing. I interpreted it one way. So our telephone game started before the telephone game was supposed to start, because
yeah.
the way we interpreted it, all of us interpreted it differently. So she thought that I would draw it and would draw like from his art, and he thought that I would draw from her script, and we would both draw from her script, and I thought that he would draw from her script, show it to me, because all mine were going to be with stick figures anyway. So I figured, well, they know that I suck at art, so they're just going to do their own thing and like let the creator see what they made out of his, I guess, story, if you will. That's what I interpret it as. So.
But I think thinking back, I think what we have like now, which is I'll write the script and then Jordan Jordan draws from the script and having Seth interpret it, I think that actually works out better. So I guess one of the goals or points of the challenge was to take something from the actual Gale script in chapter 1, The Calm, and see like how if it can be reinterpreted and transformed in a way where Seth maybe won't recognize it, or maybe he will, and he will pick like the right page that this concoction came from. And so maybe I'll just kind of go over just briefly my thought process around creating a script from Seth's script, or actually which now kind of exists as a comic page in Gale. And so my thinking through this, and I'm not sure if you caught this, Jordan, but my thinking through this was actually to make sort of a parody from Gale. And for me, it was to exaggerate Gale in a way that, because there's certain things about Gale's character that I personally get annoyed with sometimes, right? and this is the great thing about making complex stories, because you like the character, but sometimes there's like these aspects of them that you don't really like, and so I really want to focus on the ones that that kind of bugged me, and I just really wanted to create this caricature from these traits that are not desirable. So my goal was to kind of just portray. So first of all, like the comics title is Gordon. So it's kind of, again, it's because I knew Jordan was drawing it. It was kind of taking Gale and Cordy and mashing them together. So this is kind of, okay, on one hand, I'm trying to make a parody of Gale, but on the other hand, I wanted to kind of see, well, can I also write it in Jordan's style, in the sense of there's a slice of life comic that has this, like, I guess, punchline, if you will, at the end, and also kind of relate it to his character, Cordy, who's also, who's, this naive character that is, trying to be human. And I kind of saw, and after hearing Jordan explain Cordy in our previous episodes, I think the similarity between Cordy and Gale is that they're both kind of naive. They're both kind of, not really super aware of their world. And there are some times where I find that Gale can be a little bit, for lack of a better term, self-absorbed and like very single-minded in a way. And so I wanted to kind of highlight that in this little slice of his life. And maybe, Jordan, if you want to kind of take it from there and explain, like maybe your process and your thinking in creating like the art from the script.
Sure. So I wanted to do two versions of this because, like, when I was reading your script, I was like, okay, I know what characters from Cordy should be in this situation. But I just ran out of time, so I can kind of explain that later. But yeah, I got the vibe that you were putting down, specifically at the end, the very last thing that Gordon says. That is what cinched it for me. Like, okay, this has to be sort of this kind of guy who is not. He's kind of self-absorbed, as you said. So I was reading it, and I was like, okay, I kind of see where this is going. I get to the very last panel, I'm like, oh, perfect. Like, I know exactly. I read it, and I got this, like, thunderbolt in my brain. I was like, okay, I know what Gordon's going to look like, and I know what Otis is going to look like. And from there, I just kind of developed...
So it sounds like a comic, really, like in Jordan's style. Really, it really does. Like,
yeah. Well,
it really sounds like a comic. And I don't know, from hearing you guys talk about it, because I haven't seen it yet, and it seems like something that Jordan would actually draw.
Yes.
Like, it almost sounds, because he draws a lot of funny stuff. Now, I know he's got something like Water, and that's more or less, his statement on mental health and things like that. But he does a lot of stuff that's funny, like Egghead, and, even though, like, it talks about some serious subjects, like, it's always, like, there's some kind of crack going on.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. But one thing I did hear from Jordan, I think when maybe you were away, Angela, when we were talking before the show started, is that you actually write very heavy dialogue too. So I want to hear it.
Well, yeah, so when I say, so I actually wrote like 2 pages, and my goal was to just give myself like an hour so that I can actually finish this on time and give it to Jordan. And once I started writing, I just couldn't stop. I'm like, hey, this is kind of fun. I can add this, and like they can figure it out themselves of how they're gonna fit this all in. I don't have to, right? So I kind of had like a lot of fun with it, and so I kind of just try to add like as much like detail and context as I can, so that perhaps again, it was kind of thinking, okay, can someone understand the tone that I'm taking with this by providing some context, and also like through the dialogue itself, and yeah, and I just felt like there was one part where there's this character, Otis. So I guess, like, Seth, I'm not sure. Maybe it might help if you could like open up the comic too, so we can maybe talk about it together, so that we're not so you kind of get.
So you want me to go ahead and actually look at it now?
Yeah, and then you could maybe after you had a glance at it, because Jordan and I both know what the kind of the scenes and story are, so we want to kind of get your interpretation after you've read it, and so Jordan, while Seth is doing that, I just wanted to kind of talk about the character design here. Okay, So first of
Yeah.
all, run us through your thought process behind drawing Gordon and his
Well,
splendid haircut.
I'm
yeah,
already laughing.
yeah. So, I didn't like I said when I got to that last panel that you wrote, I had this clear image of him in my mind, and because like I was like, okay, is she going for more sympathetic, or is she going for more like this guy is kind of kind of a nerd, kind of whatever. So when I got to the end, I was like, okay, clearly this guy is like too self-absorbed, and so that haircut to me is like almost like Richie Rich, kind of like he doesn't know anything that's going on, and so I just thought, okay, this is the perfect haircut for this, and I just want it to be sort of like just really stick out and sort of like show that he's kind of another way that he's unaware of himself is he just has the most ridiculous haircut and this stupid bow tie, and he's just like this kind of larger, like, because like to me,
Can't even get
like when I was drawing him, I was like, I kind of want him to be somebody who's like stuck in not able to grow up, so he kind of looks like this rich boy kind of, right?
Oh my God, Jordan, that is like genius. That is exactly
I couldn't pay attention to any of it. I'm reading.
that is exactly like like I guess the tone that I want to that I was kind of thinking of taking with this because the thing about like Gale is that he's kind of not really like he's kind of like naive and childish in the sense that he is very single-minded and self-absorbed, and so like there's this part of the script where Otis, his driver, gives him like a blanket, and I really wanted to kind of portray like, okay, he's kind of acting like a big baby, right? And so I think your description of like the character development is just so it's so spot on. I'm so glad you took it in this direction. This is just genius.
Well, I was reading it, and when he keeps going on these big rants, like the middle of the script, when he goes on that rant, and then he when he goes on that rant, and then he trips on the rock, I was like, this is basically like one step away from him being like throwing a tantrum, and I was like, this guy has to look exactly like this.
Yeah. And so one of the questions I always kind of ask myself in kind of drawing Gale and seeing how his character develops is like, he's a very privileged guy in society, right? And he also has this like beautiful, smart, resourceful young girl named Lori who's absolutely, obviously, like in love with him. And he's just like this reckless guy who has this single mission, like not based. And here's the other thing: Gale's a lawyer, right? But he tries to solve his father's death, not based on any hard evidence, but based on like dreams and like inklings. And so it just so I'm just like, okay, so I'm like, why don't I just ask these questions about Gale like in this kind of parody, like, okay, and this is why like I think like the Otis character is kind of a way for me or the reader to kind of ask these questions. Like, it's kind of saying like, look, dude, you have everything going for you. You can make anything with your life right now. And, but he kind of chooses this other path. And so Jordan, I love your Otis character, by the way. And he actually, so Otis comes. I wanted to kind of pick another character from a Cordy, and I kind of took Otto's name and kind of made it more kind of, I don't know, older or something like that, right? Like, just kind of sound like a little bit more old school, and he's kind of the voice of. I guess I intended him to be the voice of reason in this, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts were behind Otis and how you designed him, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure. Well, when I was reading Otis, because the story is about Gordon, but I was reading Otis, and I was like, okay, this is the character that people are going to like, and they're going to relate to, and they're going to want to see him succeed. So I was drawing him, and I just thought, well, much like Gordon, he just kind of appeared in my mind, and I said, okay, I wanted to be like the name Otis. I was like, I wanted to be a little bit older, and his eyes are kind of like wrinkled and closed because, like in my mind, he's put up with this Gordon character for so long that he's just kind of like worn out. And then I don't know, I just wanted him to have like a weird mustache because I was like, he's gonna be like this weird looking guy with this long. I wanted him to look kind of like dignified with his long face, like because in my brain he was kind of like English almost, and so he's just putting up with all this, and he's like the voice of reason. And throughout the whole comic, the whole page, he has basically the same facial expression because I wanted it to be like, okay, he's used to this until the very end when he kind of like breaks with the reader, because I was like, okay, this is where I was like, come on, guy, like, and so I think Otis is kind of us, like you were saying. So I just wanted him to look kind of old and dignified because, like, the name, yeah, just gave me a very specific image, and the way he dresses is kind of proper, and he's got nice posture, and he's holding the umbrella. Because one thing I wanted Gordon to do was just, and it's in your script, but just like the fact that he's completely unprotected from the rain just like adds to the level of tantrum that he's throwing. Because like I just have to say right now, I love the fact that he like goes off and yells about, like, he's like yelling about himself at his own father's funeral. And like, to me, I'm
And
like,
what
okay,
about
he's
his foolish son?
yeah, and so he's just like,
Well, I'm right here.
so he's like, so Otis is just kind of like this dignified. He's just like the complete opposite of Gordon. He's this dignified old man, and I was just like, I think he's gonna be kind of stoic until the very end. So
I never knew you were a comedian, Andrew.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm honestly not. I'm like the most like unfunny person you'll ever want to meet. But for some reason, it's just kind of like I just find that, like, when we're doing Gale, it's so dark and it's so serious. But sometimes but I don't know. Sometimes it's like it's possible to find something from it that you can exaggerate and make fun of.
Right.
And I think Jordan, it's just like your characters. It's just like the way that you describe Otis and how his eyes are like permanently wrinkled and like his face is like distorted from like dealing with this like man child for so long. And it's just like, this is just so genius. Like I love this. I'm just cracking up. And yeah, Seth, like what do you think? And also, Seth, do you know which page this is from? Yeah.
Yes. So, okay. So what I'm getting at right now, obviously they're at the funeral, and it's it's kind of like the opening few pages, right?
Yeah.
But really, the way we did it in the comic is when you actually saw the driver letting him in the limo, that was just like one scene, and it's like, you see where she's whispering over to the guy, right? And he looks back, and that's it. But like, this just like took that couple of like scenes and made it into a whole like strip comic in Jordan style, and it made me cry laugh, and nothing makes me cry laugh, and that was hilarious because it's something that I know, and like it's the few. Okay, so the opening scenes are the most moody scenes in Gale. If you can get past those moody scenes, like it gets into something, I guess I have a hard time. These were the few opening scenes from Gale were like, a sophomore in high school's like poetry, and that's exactly what you guys see when you actually read the first few pieces of Gale's inner monologue, and then it's the first few things that you actually see in Angela's art, and that came from me when I was in 10th grade, and it's hilarious to see it because it's so moody, it's so like, I guess like angsty and everything like that, if that's even a word. But it's just like to see this, and then to actually give a personality to the doorman, who was like, because you kind of want to see that sometimes. It's like, nobody ever pays attention to the doorman or the
Yeah.
driver or whatever, you know. And it's like I want to see another one where like Gordon is coming out of the limo and there's all this, you know, there's all the media there, you know, and he's coming out and and the guy's like, you know, welcome home, you know, and then you've got the other guy who's the you know, the bellhop. So like all of these guys could be like trying to talk this guy into like, you know, being a, you know, because they know he's like a man child, so they're trying to like help raise him in a sense, I guess, because obviously his dead father didn't do any of it. So
So
Well,
George,
Seth, one thing.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say one thing that I was going to talk about was because you kind of mentioned the pacing versus the way that I drew it. That was one thing I wanted to talk about was because I actually had to cut out quite like several, like not necessarily, it's all the same scene, but I had to cut out several pieces because it really, I could have made this 2 or 3 pages
yeah,
with the script that I had. But, you know, to keep up with my Gordy stuff, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and strip this down to like the essentials. And so I think that's why the pace feels so different because Angela's script is more nuanced than my final project. There's a lot more details and stuff. I think I kept most of the dialogue, but there were just a couple scenes a couple panels that I combined and stuff to. But I think that's what gives it that punch at the end is because it moves so much faster, and that, you know, that was a matter of just trying to keep up my own schedule. But I think it just worked out because like this character is so.
he's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's and so
And we talked about it last week, I think. Yeah, it was last week when we were talking about how Gale is just an idiot. And so this definitely shows Gale as the idiot that, you know, I kind of see him as if we're, you know, he's this man child that hasn't grown up, but you know, you kind of feel sorry for him and Gale, you know, for a lot of things because he don't know, you know, and like he's not experienced life, but there's a lot of things you don't know about him where he's actually um you know, a lot of things have been hidden from him. So he's got this dark past. Um, and this makes kind of light of, you know, the first few parts of the story where you kind of don't even understand anything about Gale. Like you're just looking at him as someone that's like okay, is he just like being very dramatic about nothing? Um, you know, because nobody really acts like that when, you know, obviously it's a sad time, but if you actually go into the dialogue between him and Lori, he's so dramatic and he's just like slamming his fist and it's like nobody acts like that. But he does because well, obviously there's something plaguing him. But this is awesome. I love it. Like this made me cry laugh and nothing makes me cry laugh.
What I
Jordan,
always
you got
well, what I always find like interesting about Gale is that he's very like a controlled character. Like he tries to distance himself from everyone. Like he keeps everyone at arm's length, and we talked about this before.
yeah.
But at the same time, like he tries to control himself and everyone around him in a way, right? Keeping them at a distance. But at the same time, he really doesn't have any control over his emotions or the way he acts and so you know it kind of he does have this immaturity about him but I think that is the point because as the story progresses we're gonna not to give anything away but we will see him change eventually and I do understand why Seth you set him up like this but I also wanted to I'm not sure if you can access this Seth but I wanted to just give you the link to the script and I just wanted to talk quickly about how so this kind of like the script length, like the amount of text that's like in the dialogue and I guess the description I provided. I would say that this is roughly about you know the like what Seth would give me like in a page. And Seth, when you look at it, will you let me know if you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I'm looking at the background right now.
So, Jordan, I guess, do you want to maybe just tell us, like, maybe what were some of, what was the hardest part about, I guess, drawing from someone else's script?
Well, I think the biggest problem I had, and this wasn't until after I finished everything, was I did not leave enough room for the dialogue. Um, I did letter this myself, and as you can see, it is not my best work because I was like kind of just saying I was trying to just kind of get a general feel for what would it would look like. But I looked at this, and obviously I read the script several times, but when I started drawing, I wasn't really thinking of the space enough. So which is weird because like I letter my own stuff that I draw and I always leave plenty of room, but I think that's because I know my like well the one thing is like when I'm like lettering my own scripts, I don't have a problem with like changing the words to make it fit better. But like with somebody else's script, I'm like, okay, I want to stay true to what they're writing, so I don't ever change the words. So that was one thing. The other challenge was just one big challenge was like I kind of knew what page it was, so I was trying not to think about your specific art that you did for the page because I didn't want it to be too similar. So that was another big challenge, and just kind of because like I said, I did have to combine some stuff, so just kind of thinking how do I get this to one page just for my time limit. And one thing that I never thought about until I did this was that the amount of the the way that you're able to pull off like the black and white, because I was like, oh my god, I've used every shade of gray in this one page, like so I got more respect for you on that one because I was like, wait, is this the same shade of gray? Is this different?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh my God, it is. Yeah, that is very challenging. Um,
So,
yeah.
so about your script, Angela, I just read it. So, um, so you give kind of like a background, which is good, um, because that was like the background would have been like a conversation that you and I would have probably had
Yeah,
about what my point was with the story,
yeah,
and then you would start off on panel one, and then it's funny because it actually starts out kind of like while I'm reading this, it actually starts out kind of like what I would have started it out to be. Little things are just changed, but it's at a funeral, 1950s style, like black car, winding around a road. So like, it's actually starting out really close to what, mine started out like. But I love how when you wrote, it's like they're talking about father again, aren't they? And then you end it with the same quote. There's something about that. What is that called? Jordan, do you know anything like literary that would be? I don't. I mean, like where
Uh,
you're. But I mean, like it's actually. I think it's like it's really awesome because I've read things like that before where it starts out with the same, basically with the same sentence, and it ends with the same sentence. And I don't know what that's called, but
yeah,
maybe
there's
yeah,
some
yeah.
word for that, but
yeah, maybe some of you on YouTube can actually figure that out for us. What is it when a piece of writing starts with the same sentence as the first, or ends with the same sentence as the first sentence? Because that is actually genius how that actually all of that worked out. And I say actually too much, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think so one of the challenges I think about doing a page, and I have more appreciation for the strips that you do, Jordan, is that I think what you're trying to do within that page is to make a point, right? It's not like a story
Yeah.
where you flip the page and you have more space to make that point. So I needed to end it and really think about, okay, what am I trying to say? How do I kind of make this page a self-contained story? And so I guess my point is just to do like a character study or a caricature of Gale as Gordon, and I think the point is obviously that he is this man child that has not changed, and it's very exhausting of wearing to the people around him. And so I kind of use that device because I think it kind of just, that was the clearest way to show, like, this is who this person is, and if you make another comic or page about him, this is kind of what you would expect as well. So yeah, and Jordan, I should have mentioned
Jordan to continue this comic if you
yeah. I do. I think it's a really amusing, and I should have said that I should have mentioned that you are free to change the dialogue, because right now I threw up the panel where Otis is giving him the epic fatherly speech, like, come on boy, grow up and see the world. And I'm looking at it, I'm just laughing because, like, it's just, there's just so much text there, right? And I have to say, when I'm working on Gale, this happens a lot, where it's like I get to one panel and it's just like, okay, we've got to make this into 2 panels or something like that. But again, I'm like you, Jordan, where it's just like, you want to try your best to preserve the other person's writing as much as possible. Sometimes it's not possible, and I think it's clear if you kind of split it up. But it is a problem that I think that sometimes you run into. But I think you did a great job, with the sequencing
awesome
and the
job.
a really great job.
I love that. And you know what? If I saw that, like, if I got to read a weekly comic of that, but you know what? Maybe it's because it's something I really relate to. I don't know. Maybe other people would think differently, but I really think it's genius, and probably because I'm attached to my own story, and to see a parody made of my story, like, it's just, that's why I cry laughed, because I get it. I think I understand how ridiculous Gale can be. I mean, obviously, I've called my own main character an idiot, so I think that you did a really good job, Angela, with actually, like, with making that like a caricature of Gale, and you did a really good job of interpreting her script and condensing it down a little bit, but I don't think that I would have changed the dialogue, Jordan, because really everything that she wrote was like it was like comic gold, like, it was just like she was funny. So,
well, what I was going to say was, with that huge panel where Otis is talking, that was the one where I got to, and I thought, like, above everything else, all of this dialogue has to stay here, because that is what gives that last panel such a punch, is that Otis has just said this amazing, basically this soliloquy, right? And Gordon just goes right back to, well, they're talking about father. So I was like, I know, pacing wise, and I know, like, for the joke, everything that Otis says has to be there, like this amazing speech, right? And it's just completely ignored, and because that last line, Angela, when you're talking about trying to get, that contained story by doing one page, that last line is what sewed everything together for me. Because I was like, okay, I think this is the way that I'm going to do this. I got to the last line and I was like, this is absolutely the way I'm going to do this. And it was all that last line. So everything, all the dialogue led up to it. So I tried to keep it all. It was just more a matter of, like, getting it to fit in. But, because this wasn't something that we're publishing, like, like, that everybody's going to see it, or like that isn't going in a comic or whatever, like a physical comic. I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about getting it perfect. We just have to see all the dialogue, because then you get to that end and you're just like, this guy is, like, hopeless.
He's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And I got to say that, Seth, you say, Gale's an idiot or whatever, and those are just, like, my favorite characters to write. So, I mean, that aspect of, like, without the redeeming qualities that Gale will have, Gordon just has that. He's just kind of like that, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Gordon is Gale with no redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I love about it. Yeah.
And I think. Well, I wanted to add quickly. I think the hardest part about writing, because I haven't, like, written, like, a script for God knows how long, but, like, I think the hardest part about being at the starting point of creating a comic as a writer is coming up with the concept and wondering, oh my God, is this like a dumb idea? Is this even interesting enough to draw? Like, is this, you know what I mean? You're kind of like, it's like that was a challenging part. It's like getting over like, okay, it's kind of deciding what am I going to do, and is it interesting enough, and getting over the self doubt of that. I think was probably like the most challenging part, and also finding the point and kind of making it all work together in a way, and hoping that you communicated it well enough. And I'm just wondering, because both of you are obviously writers, like what, if you kind of share that, or is there other challenging parts of like writing a script that that you think is really hard and difficult?
Jordan?
Oh, I was gonna let you go, but yeah,
okay.
I think the big thing, is like convincing yourself that people care what you have to say. That's a big thing. And then, I always look at writing a script as like pulling. It's kind of hard to explain, but like you have these ideas and you're just pulling them out of like the ether, and you have to like get them to make sense. And because like to me that is like some days some days I'm like, oh, I don't want to draw, but some days I'm like, I do not want to write, because like there's like, because like I look at writing as like the bones, like that's the skeleton of the story, and you have to create that first before you can hold anything. And to me, it's just like, oh my God, like I have a concept, I have to be able to put it down in words, and I have to make people care about that. That is a huge block to get past, I think.
I don't have a lot of blocks to get past because, Angela, if there's a problem with my writing, you're going to let me know it, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to figure it out. I don't care if you see my writing, you know how that is? Like,
yeah. It's kind of it's a little different when you're collaborating, because you have someone else to bounce off your idea. But I do remember, Seth, there were a couple of conversations where you're trying to think about what's coming next, and you get stuck at certain parts, and then you kind of you could talk to me about it, and then I know you kind of go off and then you work on your own and work through those blocks. Particularly because you're actually working a couple of issues ahead. I think you're on 4 or 5 right now. So
yeah, something like that. Well, remember, I just pitched you my idea of going back and actually rewriting half of a whole issue, I guess. But never mind, we're not going to talk about that because I'll probably give everything away that nobody even knows about yet. So we're just going to go with with that. No, but really though, like when I write, I'm not. Um, I'm. I was more afraid to share that script that I shared on Twitter that you found and you told me was something that you would actually make a comic into, or like something you identified with and would like to make a comic with me. Like I was actually more afraid to put that out online than I am to write Gale, because by the time the script actually, like if we put a part of the script out to the public, like by the time that happens, it's like I've had you review it and I trust you, and we have that relationship like where I can put something out and you can let me know if like there's like a hole in it, or because we both, like, I know you don't write, but I know you understand literature, and I know you understand story. And if there's a hole in something, or if there's something that doesn't make sense, we've already been through it. You said, okay, well, maybe we need to get rid of, so and so over here, or maybe we need to cut this scene down with this guy because when does he come back, and if he doesn't come back, why does he need to be a main character? And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that happened. And when that happened, you know, I mean, I actually went back and actually wrote a better comic, I think. And so it doesn't, like when I write something and you read it, I have that, it's like that confidentiality, right? So I can write something and it can be completely horrible, and then you read it and you come back to me and say, wow, it's not so bad, because you're never going to tell me like it's trash. when I probably know it is. But you're going to be like, it's not so bad, but maybe you need to change this, or maybe it needs to be like this. And so, like, you actually help me figure out where I'm going. And so to give it to you to interpret the art, it's not really that worrisome for me to just put it out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I just wanted to add, I don't actually, I don't think I participate too much in, determining the arc, like the character arcs or where the story is going or what's actually
Yeah,
happening.
I know.
But I think I think what I do is like, at least this is how I view my job, if you will, is kind of taking the script and figuring out a way to kind of make it work in comic form. So, if you have a script and there's a series of actions and dialogue that has to happen, it's more like, what makes sense in terms of pacing. And the script, again, like that I wrote, for this short exercise, I think it's very similar actually to like the script of Gale, in terms of just the length and the amount of words that need to kind of go
Right.
in. And so I thought it was just like, I didn't mean to like, make it too difficult or like to punish you, Jordan, but I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave it and like let him deal with it, and just so that someone else
Yeah.
experience.
Like I punished that.
But yeah, because I don't think I do any like major editing to Seth's script other than just sometimes I make suggestions. Okay, maybe we can move this on to the next page to create suspense, or maybe we can split this up into 3 panels because the dialogue is it's a little bit hard to sometimes like Seth's dialogue is very much like the Otis monologue sometimes, where it's just like and sometimes you need like that big monologue, and so if that's needed, then I can plan on making like a establishing shot, like a big wide panel that takes up half the page to accommodate that. Or sometimes it makes more sense, like that one where Fairmont was in the
I
car.
still don't think I'm as bad as The Walking Dead, though.
The what? What?
The Walking Dead. I still don't think I'm as bad as The Walking Dead at their monologues.
Oh yeah. They are pretty notorious for that. When I read
I've had that long of a monologue.
when I read the Walking Dead, I always feel like the characters aren't actually talking to each other, but they're talking at each other. And at least for me, like with Gale, it's like they're actually having a conversation, right? Whereas like Walking Dead, I always felt like, okay, one monologue after another after another. It gets the story across, but I think there's a lot of exposition. What do you call it when it's like someone's?
I think about.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing I think about The Walking Dead. It's like, all right, you have these characters, and they're like some of the last people on Earth, and everybody, like, I mean, not everybody, obviously, you got some people that are like the main characters. Most of them think that they're right. Like, everybody argues about how right they are, and how much everybody wants to basically have an idea about, you know, how civilization's going to be, and I feel like everybody's going to talk at each other, even if they're getting along. They're always talking at each other because they have like all the characters in The Walking Dead seem to have like huge egos,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of leaders, but they're different styles of leaders, and every leader, like, honestly, every leader that I've had always has a lot to say, like when he's in front of people. So like every leader has to motivate everybody to go do something that's going to be for the good of everyone. So it's like every time that they're going to do something, it's literally a life or death moment. So they've got to motivate everybody to do something. So that's what they do. They just have this huge monologue, like just this huge pep talk about, hey, we got to go do this, And really, it's just, that's why I understand that. But when I write my comics, there's not, Gale is not this natural born leader. He's just a guy, and yeah, he's got a lot of money, and yeah, he took some college classes, and he finally passed the bar, like any normal person, that wanted to be an attorney, and you know, and then you have his lifelong friend that he, you know, um, friend zoned for too long, and now she's gonna friend zone him, and I just said friend zone, so, but you know what I mean, like they're both friends, but they could be more, and that's basically why they communicate like they do, is because they have this passion for each other. They have these emotions for each other, and but they're also hiding something from each other, and
Yeah.
they want to be together, and it's just that's what makes it complex. It makes it complicated, and I don't know, like they're not talking at each other because they don't have to talk at each other to go like pep talk each other to go do something that is going to save mankind. They're just talking about normal things that normal people would talk about.
And, yeah, and Jordan, I was curious, kind of on the topic. Do you have like when you write Gordy or Water? Do you have like and sometimes maybe you think, oh, does this make sense? Do you kind of just let it sit and then review it, or do you actually have like a buddy or someone that you kind of that you have where that can give you like a second pair, that can be like a second pair of eyes, or what's your process around that?
Yeah, sometimes I'll run it by different people. Like if I want to make sure something makes sense, or if something's actually funny and it's not just like me being like ho ho, like that's kind of funny to me. So sometimes I'll do that, but most of the time I'll just let stuff sit. With joke writing, especially like when I'm writing Gordy, I'll write something, and then that specifically I'll let sit. I'll come back to it and I'll kind of rewrite it, and I'll be like, okay, I could do this to improve it. And that's the thing is, I write these things out months ahead of time, and the reason why is I let it sit a couple different times, and then I'm like, okay, now I found the perfect wording for this or whatever. So most of the time, yeah, it's just a process of time. Sometimes if there's like one I want to get out right away, I'll be like, hey, does this make sense to like my brother or some of the people who read Gordy all the time? But yeah, most of the time for me, it's just like, all right, you wrote it, let it sit, and if it's still funny to you in a week, then maybe you have something.
Okay, that's cool. And is that your puppy? Is that your puppy there that
Yeah.
was on screen for? But yeah, it's this is kind of like random, but it's kind of in line with just writing comedy. I think like people who are funny are just like geniuses, and I think making people laugh is like really hard.
Are you
But
calling yourself a genius?
no, I'm not. I'm really like not funny. But but over the weekend I watched this really good. I binge watched Afterlife. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's like the new Ricky Gervais Netflix series
Oh, okay.
where basically the premise is like his wife died of cancer, and he's like this bitter man, and so he to kind of deal with his pain, his ongoing pain. He's basically just like a complete like asshole, pardon the French, like to like everyone, right? So he just says like the wildest things, like when he's walking his dog just to like his neighbor and things like that. And so it's anyways, I think like Ricky Gervais, he has this really he just does like dark comedy so well, and I think this series is his masterpiece. And I don't know if you guys are kind of interested in you know looking at
Yeah,
what
I
dark
love the
yeah.
attention of mine, and I'll definitely check that out.
Do you guys want to plug your your new Comixology thing?
Oh, yeah. So for all the rest of you who are living under a rock who didn't know, no, I'm just kidding. Not insulting everybody in the country because we only have like 7,000 followers on Instagram. So, like for all of you who didn't know, Gale just okay. So Gale is now available on Comixology, and it's something that we actually submitted to Comixology like 3 months ago, and we figured we would just hide it from all of you, or at least most of you, because we didn't know if we were going to get accepted or not, and we did. So now we have Gale on Comixology, and it's available, and it's just for $2.99 because I know it's a 32-page comic, but you know, we thought about it like this: most comics probably are going to sell for what, Jordan, like $5.99 on
Yeah,
Comixology.
probably $4 to $5. Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons that we're doing it though. So for one, you know, we're doing it because if somebody discovers a comic for $2.99, it's much easier to buy if you don't know what it's about for, you know, $2.99 than $5.99. So also we want to, you know, we're working on chapter 2, and chapter 2 is going to be out before you know it. So we want everybody to be able to read that wants to read and can afford to read, you know, Gale chapter 1. Obviously, there's other ways to read chapter 1. You can read it, you know, through Instagram, and we still have it on Webtoons. So if you want to read it like that, that's fine. But I really do like the way that Comixology has done the new comic. In their own little style, you know, how they do their format. So, Angela, do you want to like kind of explain the way that Comixology does that format?
I actually have. I have not yet downloaded the Comixology app yet, but I will do that. So hey, I've been busy. I've been like, you know, recording awkward things, awkward recordings of myself to help promote it, and you know, and I'm still working out this next page of Gale, which, you know, it's a very dramatic spoiler page, and I'm kind of struggling to work that out. Plus, I'm like writing comics now, you know, so I
She's
don't
a
have
big
time.
deal, Seth. She's a big deal.
I don't have time to like download apps. No, but in all seriousness, I will check it out. But what I do want to say before you continue, Seth, is that you know, we've done webtoons, and you can read it on webtoons for free. You can read it on Instagram for free. And Gale has existed for many years as this webcomic, you know, like this kind of, you know, just scattered panels and pages. But the Comixology version is really how it was designed to be read in terms of, you know, the paneling and like the layout. And so I think that this is like definitely the best version to consume it. It's really what it was meant, how it was meant to be seen. And I also kind of wanted to add that in addition to that, we do have a Patreon, and you can also read, you know, Gale the Calm Chapter 1, plus the latest pages of Chapter 2 for free when you subscribe to our Patreon. And there is also another version of Gale the Calm out there on our Gumroad, which we often link down below, and that actually contains the unsent letters between Lori and Gale, sorry, that kind of goes into their complicated relationship more. So I kind of wanted to kind of put that in there, and that's free if you subscribe to our Patreon, and that one is actually like 40 some pages or something. So so you know, please check it out, and if you like our content, if you like the art, if you like the story so far, you know, please help us grow by sharing our content, and if you want to, you know, pick up a copy, that would help us a lot as indie creators. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that Jordan, this comic that you made of Gordon, I don't know, like I really want to include this like somewhere, like when we launch a Kickstarter or something like that. Like this needs to be like some sort of sub series of like the Gale world, because I think you know what it is. I think it's just nice that because we're making such a dark, serious comic, to show that we're also like, you know, not taking ourselves like so seriously as well. Like I think it's just and you've just captured everything perfectly, including like the foot where he trips on that rock. It's just
Yeah, I was gonna say if you guys want to use it for whatever, promotion wise or Patreon or
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Well, have you ever watched anime?
Not for. I mean, I used to watch it a lot as a kid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, I've watched a lot of like anime. Like, I mean, I don't watch it myself, but like I've caught it. Like, what are the? And that's why I'm asking you this question. If you can tell me, um, you know, there's always the mature characters, and then they go to like the little baby-looking characters,
Oh
right?
yeah,
oh the
the
So I
chibis,
kind of
the
feel like
chibis.
that's like,
Chibis. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
chibis.
exactly
Yeah,
what
yeah,
this is. Yeah,
yeah. It feels like that's a Gale chibi, right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've always wanted like a Gale chibi because I think it's just pretty
That's
funny because
awesome.
he's just so like serious and dramatic. But yeah, and also like yeah, thanks Jordan again for being our co-host and actually
Yeah.
giving and actually kind of cueing us in to plug plug in our own stuff in our own podcast. But
Well,
yeah,
you know,
and
I,
it,
That's and it's pretty awesome because you've been on for like 3 straight episodes now, or well, I guess it's 3 straight episodes now that he's been on. So like, you didn't have to be here, and I really appreciate that because I know you believe in the Gale mission, and you know the Gale Force. I know that you're a part of the Gale Force. You're a letterer, but I know you believe in us, and that's actually really like I don't know. I'm just I'm just like speechless. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I think
I
this one was.
appreciate you coming like here. I know how much time this takes because you've got to do Gordy and you've got to do something like water and it's like it's like I don't even know how I'm going to keep up with what I have to do for the week, and then you all are always like surprising me about how much you guys can get done, and always motivating me to try harder. I guess.
Well, I think I told Seth the secret when I think you disconnected earlier before we were recording, and the secret is you made this video and you said every panel is a painting, Angela, and I said to Seth like I heard that and I looked at my art and I was like my saying is every panel needs to get done right now, and so that's the secret. Like
And
that's the
so that's the
secret.
name of this
yeah.
podcast: is every panel needs to get done right now.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
Jordan Kyrian
Yeah.
method.
Yeah. Well, that is interesting, and I think I'm learning more from from you two. I think because like I think at the beginning, particularly when I was kind of overcommitting and like but not really going through with things and finishing things. It's really because a lot of it was to do with perfectionism, and it's not like it's not like humble bragging. I actually think perfectionism is some like mental disease that really needs to be addressed, right? It's kind of, and I think it's like it's really kind of prevented me from like doing as much as I want to or could. And I think just Jordan, like when you say the stuff about just putting yourself out there, getting this alter ego, just getting things done, right, good and done. I think that is really worth like that. I think that's such a like a worthy goal. As you strive to kind of grow artistically, I think it's important to think about, well, okay, this is good enough, and just like stop drawing every single drop of rain and just get out there.
Yeah,
But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed this week's drawing challenge as much as we did. Again, we'll have all the Gale link new stuff below in our video. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Also, make sure to check out GordyComic.com, where that's where Jordan's comic is, and make sure to follow him on his social media, which is again Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the main stuff. All right, and we'll be back next week, and And yeah, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.